In this small Kentucky town lives one of America's most remarkable families.
How many people here?
In this town?
About 1,200, which is about the same number as were here during the Civil War. It hasn't changed much.
This area has been home to generations of the Clooney clan.
Everybody has to be from someplace. We're from here. We're from this dirt. There's the Catholic Church to your right now, and the little Catholic school.
Nick Clooney moved his family back here from Cincinnati in the 70s. He wanted to give his children, Ada and George, the same small town upbringing that he enjoyed.
Both Ada and George graduated from Augusta High School. It's a very old school going back to the 1870s. George, because of his travels, doesn't get back here much, but when he does, it's great fun because on the front porch up there, all of the kids who went to school with him, graduated with him, the ones who are still around here, they all end up on the front porch and they talk till 3 in the morning, telling lies, you know.
For decades, one or other of the Clooneys has been at the forefront of America's popular culture. This is where Ship Rosemary lived, and now it's a museum.
Here for over 20 years, yes.
Nick's sister and George's auntie was Rosemary Clooney, the famous singer and actress.
Oh, so this is the family tree. It's my grandfather and grandmother, dad and mom. Over here is just a wall of pictures, including a picture from when Rosemary did the premiere of her first movie in 1953.
I'm back on the shelf and I'm...
While Rosemary is fondly remembered, it's their son George who brings out the most pride in Nick and his wife Nina.
These are posters of George up here, and there are some of his awards that he got when he was in high school playing tennis and magazine covers.
Across town is Nick and Nina's home. The Green Monster, as they like to call it.
It's George doing a caricature of me about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So I used it as the cover. He has a flair about anything he tries, puts his hand to.
Nick Clooney himself has carved out an impressive 60-year career in journalism. What do you call this room here? I mean, we've got pictures on the wall, on the ceiling, on the walls, even behind the bar here.
We call this the afterthought room. Here's a picture of an 18-year-old doing an election returns. That was in 1952.
That's you there?
Dwight, the one on the right, that's me. Dwight David
with all that
Eisenhower.
black hair.
Yes.
Nick started reporting way back during the Eisenhower administration and saw many presidents come and go. And there's Bill Clinton.
Yes, there's a conversation that was of prominent Irishmen.
What have we got on the ceiling here?
Let me see, a little bit of everything. There's Nick emceeing something. There's Nick talking. There's Nick interviewing. There's Nick gabbing. It's just an aging as we go.
In his prime, Nick was a news anchor in some of America's biggest cities. His work in television had the happy side effect of introducing his son to the world of performance. George used to come in and operate the auto cue.
Oh yes, absolutely. He knew television very well from the time he was tiny. He and his sister.
Live television too.
Absolutely, and he loved doing all of that. Loved being around that.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Years later, George drew on those early experiences, making a film about his father's hero.
Good evening. Last week, Senator McCarthy appeared on this program to correct any errors he might have thought we made in our report of March 9th.
Good Night and Good Luck told the story of newsman Ed Murrow. As a 7-year-old, Nick had been transfixed by Murrow's reporting from war-torn Europe.
Good night and good luck.
Ed was in the middle of that, and he was telling us about it, and he was telling us why it mattered, and he was telling us about it at the center of everything and at the risk of his life. And he was telling us something important. And I was listening to that when I was 7 years old. This, no, never, this is London. It is, this is London. That one pause made all the difference. He got that.
The Clooneys' shared passion for journalism is matched by a strong social conscience. For years, their families talked about the world's injustices, including Darfur.
George and I couldn't understand why this story wasn't getting any traction. Why wasn't it a bigger story? And we finally came to the conclusion at the end of the day that the only thing we could do would be to go there, and because of George's celebrity, we might be able to call more attention to what was going on over there.
So at the age of 72, Nick Clooney travelled to war-torn Sudan, with his famous son chipping in as cameraman.
Here's George standing on top of our Land Rover.
Filming away?
Yes.
Now, you've worked with a lot of cinematographers over the years. How do you judge him as a...
He's quite good.
He's
quite good.
Cameraman?
Actually, he has a union card as a cinematographer.
Has he?
He does.
Darfur. More than 2 million lives hanging on a thread.
The result of their trip was this short film about the refugees' plight.
I'm Nick Clooney. I'm a reporter. After reading shocking news stories coming out of Darfur, my son George and I decided to do whatever we could to get this story on the front page.
What the father and son saw in Darfur shocked both of them.
From him personally, he lost 9 from his immediate family members.
9 dead? Well, it changed me in many ways. Professionally, it changed me from a reporter to an advocate. I did not consider myself an advocate, and as a matter of fact, I disapproved of those reporters who became advocates, and I never did that until I saw this.
Since returning from Sudan, Nick and George have thrown themselves into lobbying for the people of Darfur.
And the world's policy on Sudan is failing.
They use their film to help raise awareness at rallies large and small.
Between George and me, we say George does wholesale Darfur, I do retail.
The United States has called it genocide. For you, it's called ethnic cleansing. But make no mistake, it is the first genocide of the 21st century. And if it continues unchecked, it will not be the last.
3 years ago, George Clooney addressed the UN Security Council, trying to get urgent action to protect the innocent.
So that was our hope. We failed. We continue to fail, but that is not reason enough to quit. You have to keep doing
What do you
this.
mean you failed?
Because we didn't get it. Those people are still in danger. They're still dying every day. They're still being burned out of whatever remains of their small villages. Everything that they have has been stolen or slaughtered. Their animals, their homes have been burned down. Their men have been killed. Their children sometimes dismembered, thrown into wells just to foul them. It's an ongoing horror story. It's been called a slow motion genocide.
So you're packing up to go to Washington?
We are indeed. And
On top of his Darfur campaign, Nick is taking on yet another challenge.
These are my textbooks for the class. I didn't think that I should require the kids to buy my book.
Nick has just started teaching journalism and film at the American University in Washington, and he and Nina are packing up for their weekly 7-hour commute.
Books.
all right.
We have all the full winter gear, honey.
It's all in the back there.
Yes, and
Okay.
I pushed it up into the far recesses of the back. I try to give us a little more room.
Good.
In Washington, D.C., Nick and Nina show me around the Museum of News. please.
This is the Edward R. Murrow Corner. It has a great deal about Ed and people who knew him talking about Ed.
Nick Clooney also has a role here, presenting programs on the history of journalism.
This is NBC's coverage of the 19...
Despite the rise of the internet, he still believes TV news has a vital part to play.
I know we need to have a central place where we can go and get the information we trust, that all of us at one level or another trust. If you've got a little internet blog, there's no resource. There's nothing behind it. You have no way to sustain a long effort in finding out what's going on in the world.
My name is Jessica Leeser, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Vertical. It's a triumph at my age. It's good to see you.
Over at the American University, Nick's first lecture of the year is on movies that changed history.
I posit during the book that we never really had the breakthrough racial film. We had a lot of breakthrough films.
In many ways, this course is a culmination of the Clooney family's achievements. It draws on Nick's knowledge of filmmaking and journalism, as well as their passion for social justice.
But what we're looking for is 2 pages, and we're looking for a film that you believe had a negative impact on whatever, on society, on yourself, on whatever.
It's impressive, you know, how much he brings with it, you know, from his journalism experience and also just his connections. How much he can, you know, relate to us is great.
Did you expect to be doing this at this stage of your life?
No, had no idea that this would, these kinds of opportunities would still be available. I'm 75 years old. That's usually a time when. Thank you. That's usually a time when one is obviously settled in front of the fire with a pipe and a good bourbon and reading a book, you know. And instead, here I am, meandering around as if I knew what I was doing. My real talent is my having outlived my more talented compatriots. But I'll try to do them honor, and I'll try to remind people what their great work was and why it was important.
But for Nick Clooney, the most important work still lies ahead. He and George are hoping to return to Sudan soon, and he says he'll keep fighting for the people of Darfur until his last breath.
We're going to keep at this. We're not going to stop, you know. We're going to keep at this until those folks are allowed to go home and live their lives out in peace.